Hey everyone, we are finishing up the portrait series with my favorite summer flower, the sunflower. This is Melissa with The Creative Season. I hope you have just as much fun painting this flower as I did. I absolutely love the sunflower for so many reasons. You're going to want to grab all the yellows. We're going to blend them to create lots of depth. We're going to do a little bit of splattering. We're going to use a Micron pen for sketching. It turns out to be an absolutely beautiful piece. It might be my favorite of the whole series, and it's a wonderful piece that you can show in your home or use for a journaling project or send to someone, right? Someone who needs a reminder to keep their face lifted up towards the sun, just like our beautiful flowers, the sunflowers do. Hey everyone, Melissa here with The Creative Season, and we're back. We're within the final portrait series of our portraits of flowers. We are up close and personal with the sunflower today, one of my favorite summer flowers. So I'm bringing this in a little bit closer so you can see I've sketched out a sunflower. I've used a Micron pen size 05 this morning. And as you're about to sketch out the sunflower, as we paint this portrait, I recommend really paying attention to your measurements, the proportions of the sunflower. So just again, looking at this, when we look at our sunflower, I have it resting against a matchbox so it will stick up and play with us nicely this morning. But look at that beautiful face, and it is so big, right? The face of the sunflower. I always like to measure it with my fingers and then look and compare it to how long it is compared to the petals. Actually, the width or that diameter of the sunflower face is longer than the actual petals of the sunflower. Forgot my words there for a minute. So remember that when you are painting and when you are sketching it out, is that our sunflower, just to make it look as exact and closely resemble a sunflower as possible, it needs to have those correct proportions. So I have this is my width, and then I made sure as I just reached out that my petals were not quite that long. And I purposely chose a square piece of paper so I could fill it up. I didn't want too much white space, and so it would help me with my proportions. The other thing that I did is I did use something for the circle in the center. So I ended up getting this is an old jar. This jar, my water jar, was going to be too big for the paper. My petals would have squished out, but this jar was just right. So I just did a quick sketch, and that was how I sketched that out. And then the other thing I want you to notice too is all the variations of colors as well. So this is not an exact circle. So if your circle is squiggly, all the better. We're going to end up making this squiggly. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video if you need to sketch, and go ahead and sketch and then come on back. Making sure too, as you sketch your petals, also realize they are smaller at the base and smaller at the top, and they go broad in their width. It's just noticing those characteristics. They're not all the same size. Some of them are going the other way. These flowers are a few days old. I bought them late last week, so you can see them aging a bit on their ends. I had a leaf sticking out of mine. I'm not going to paint that leaf because the paper is not going to allow me, but I definitely got the stem, and I have a couple of my green stems poking out, so it did incorporate a few of those. So go ahead and sketch or keep watching. Let's go ahead and paint together. What I have is I do have a lot of yellows today. So make sure you have a sap green or hooker's green will work. And then I have any yellows, cadmium yellow, both light and medium hues. I have a raw sienna. I have gamboge in the corner, lemon yellow. I don't have yellow ochre, but if you have a yellow ochre or a light orange, that's gonna work nice too. And let's start painting this morning. What I want to start with actually too is I am going to grab and do just a little bit of some splattering as well. I actually want to do some splattering in the middle because we have some yellow as well as some brown in the middle there, right? We have a lot of brown, but I have a lot of yellow. So let's go ahead and start by splattering some yellow in the middle, and just get your paint nice and wet, whatever color you want to use. I do recommend, like for example, if you have a cadmium and a lemon, mix them together. We're definitely going to be mixing colors here. It's going to help bring some variety, and I'm just going to splatter. Most of this will be covered up by brown, but I want to get some nice warm color in there first. And I knocked the camera, I apologize. If you have just a little bit of gamboge and add that to it, that'll kind of warm it up a bit. There we go. So I have splattered, 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 super fun. Great, we're just gonna put all of those other papers to the side. That was great. This is a kind of a way to shortcut, right? Speed up getting some of those dots instead of tediously making lots of dots. Now that I have that, I'm gonna use my paintbrush and I am just going ahead, go and start filling in some of my petals. Now you're gonna notice that I do not paint them all in. One of the reasons I don't paint them all in is that you'll notice the myriad of colors on our petals. And to get that depth, we're going to definitely want to add in other colors. So keep it wet. Keep it real wet and light. We're going to start dropping color here in just a second. Make sure, again, not too dry. I don't want your paintbrushes to be too dry. This is not a tight watercolor painting. This is a portrait, but it is one of those where we are painting in the margins. That's what we've been doing all month long, of really not doing anything that's terribly laborious or it's terribly time-taking, but we're just working on moving quickly, using the time that we've been given. And whether that is just 15 or 20 minutes, or if we can take our time, maybe we have an hour during the week, but we create in the margins. We're making in the margins, grateful for the time that we're given, however large or small it is. And I do really believe that as we are just wise and we are thankful and we use our time to just the best of our abilities, not super stringently, but really no excuses. You know, if we have 15 minutes, we're just grateful for them and we take advantage of that, and that's rewarded, and that our skills are going to get better, our efforts are going to get better, our artwork is going to be lovely, we're going to have joy in creating all the things. Okay, now I have a little green sticker outer thing. I don't even know what they're called, the kind of the thistles in the back, and there was one right there, which I unintentionally went over with yellow. So if you do that, just take a dry paintbrush, and I have a dry one here. I'm gonna actually grab it. This one, and just suck up that paint, and we will come back and fill those in with green. I should have probably started with that, but that is okay. So instead, we will finish up with that in our next step. Now go ahead and grab a darker yellow. So now that may be too, you may just wanna take some of your brown, take a little bit of brown, mix that in the corner with your yellow. We don't have to have tons of colors. And that is simply going to add, and then just start dipping this around. Just moving it around. Where you see the darker areas, usually it's going to be at the base of the petals. And I am just literally, you can see I'm just dropping this in. I am just moving it around, and depending on how wet your paper is and how much water you have in your paintbrush, it's going to move around more or less. So if you want it to move around more, add some water. If you want it to move around less, either wait for it to dry or just dab it up with a cloth. But I'm just adding it at the base, at my tips, moving that around, coming up here nice and high. And isn't that fun how it's already really starting to pop, right? Isn't that interesting how just one other color in there can really make a huge difference. Oh, I hope you are enjoying the summer. The weather, the heat really knocks me out, but besides the heat, I love summertime. I think the older I get, the more I enjoy it and all the beauty it brings and the different feels. I love the idea of just slowing down a bit, having some leisurely conversations with people, getting together just for no reason with friends. You know, we take a break, like a women's group, we take a break in Bible study, which I, love it, but love the break too. And other things where just, even at work, it's still busy. However, because people are on vacation, they are not as prone to see me quite as much, and I'm actually can be a little bit more efficient in the summertime. It's really kind of interesting. Okay, let's go ahead and pick up some green. I want to give the center part just a little bit more time to dry. And I certainly hope, wherever you are, I'm going to use some sap green. If you have hooker's green, just add some yellow to it to warm it up. That you too are able to slow down a bit. Now you'll notice on the sides of our sunflower, we have these little knobs. You may or may not see any poking out on yours. I am just going to put one in Be careful going up to the petal that we don't get green into our yellow. So just be careful with that. In fact, I probably should have used a smaller brush. I'm going to pick up that smaller brush now. I'm going to leave that alone, but I'm going to go ahead over here where I had that green sticking out there, just those petals in the back, and I had one right here. Oh, and you can see what I did. I got a little bit of too much green in there. So what I'll do is I'll grab that dry paintbrush and we'll just soak it out. If that happens, just mop it up, not a big deal, let it dry, and then we'll come back in and I'll add some more yellow to that petal. And I had one sticking out right over here. And those are just sticking out almost like a thorn. It's not a thorn like a rose, but it kind of looks like that. Okay, very good. So we've got that done. Now let's go ahead and look. I'm going to grab some of that brown. I have, which one is this? Is my favorite. It's not warm, it's burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is my favorite warm brown, and so I have that over here. And I am actually going to go ahead and just start moving it around here. The brown on the sunflower is pretty dark, so I may need something darker, I'm sorry. So either I might add some green. I don't know how that would look actually, but let's try it. I'm going to add some green to the brown. I'm actually going to put it on a little piece of paper because I want to test it before I actually put it on there. Sometimes these things work. Oh, see, that actually looks pretty good. It is a darker brown, but it's a bit swampy. It is, okay, and I want more of a warm brown, so we're not going to use that. I'm going to let that darker spot stay on there, but let's go back to our burnt sienna, and I'm just going to start moving that, and I'll do a nice heavy dose over that, and that'll just create some darker areas. Probably I have a burnt umber which I can incorporate into here, and that will work nicely. Now you don't have to. If you really like that warmth, keep the warmth. I'm probably just going to add just a little bit till we get that dark areas. And you can see as I'm putting in my dots, they're kind of messy, right? They're not super clean, but also you can even do them in a circle like this if you wanted to. I'm leaving white space, because that really is the beauty of watercolor, is we always want to be letting that magical bit of white space do its work, where it looks like the colors just bouncing around. Also, I'm going to come up here close to my petals. We've let them dry, so it shouldn't be seeping into the petals, but I want to go up where we have that ragtag edge, just like over here in our actual sunflower. Okay, this is coming along really, really nicely. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of brown. I can see a bit of brown here in my stem. I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm also then going to take a little bit of that brown, and I am just going to dip it into some of my edges where I just see some color, even in here. And this might be a way you might want to really create some nice ends. You see how kind of the pokey ends that we have going on? And we're going to pull that down in here. Perfect. This is looking really fun. I do love beautiful sunflowers. Okay. This is looking really, really nice. Okay, now what do we want to do to add a bit of pop? What I'd like to do is see how yellow these leaves are. They're a golden, like a bright, right? So I'm actually going to grab some gamboge. The other thing you can do is if you have like a cadmium light orange or a cadmium yellow, medium or dark hue, both of those are going to do the trick. Sometimes the orange can be a bit powerful, so mix it with some yellow. But pick that up. Mix that up, and then let's go back over. I'm going to grab a bigger brush because I want it to be watery. And even in the middle of each of the flowers, of the petals, not each of the flowers, even just, so you are almost doing a nice stroke, a bit broad stroke in there. And see how it gives them a pop? Just that beautiful. You don't have to do the whole thing. I'm going to also go really grab some extra water. Got a little bit of orange. I am just mixing up a concoction here, like it's my color stew, my summer stew of yellows. and putting this together. There we go. And you can see it letting some white show. I'm going to then come around the edges because I want to soften up my edges. I don't want hard lines. There are no hard lines really on the sunflower. Even the lines that on the petals are soft and wiggly. So we are just moving that around. Perfect. That looks really good. That looks really, really nice. I'm going to take the ends and just tap a couple of my ends. Isn't this pretty? It's just really lovely. I have a sunflower sticker that just came out, and that was made from a portrait style flower. And I'll put the link to the Etsy store below. But it's just been so much fun each year to keep playing with sunflowers and do them a little bit differently. It's just been beautiful though. Okay, I am going to take my umber. The umber is pretty dark. I'm going to mix it. So umber by itself, I'll show you what that looks like here. And it's a pretty dark brown, but it's a cooler brown. So I'm going to mix it with a little bit of the burnt sienna. That way, it's not, we're just going to take a bit. And I don't need a ton of it. I really just want a little bit. Just a little bit, and I want to intensify. You can see right in here where we're going with this. And you can also see how that yellow that we splattered in, you can still see it. It's not a ton. I'm going to put a little bit in the center because I see it there. Also, that yellow is acting as another way for the color to bounce off of, which I love. And you can see too, I'm not putting tons of it in. I just want a little bit. I don't want tons. I'm going to come back to, I'm going to take the brown, the cadmium brown. Going to dab up a little bit in there, move that around. We don't want flat looking paintings. We really want paintings that look like they're kind of popping off. Okay, this looks lovely. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take a brush that's fairly dry. I'm going to pick up some of that green again. I'm going to come right down here and add in a little bit of a shadowing, a little bit of depth here to our green spiky leaves. I'm going to come back on this one that had merged and just give it a bit of a pop there, have it stick out a little bit more. And then up in here with this stalk, we're going to just darken it on one side, add just a bit of brown to it over here. There we go. Very nice. Add a little bit of that brown right over on this one. And again, I'm just dabbing it in. Okay, I think I'm about done. Now, what we might come back and do, or if you want to do this, it looks lovely, but you could always come back and do more pen work if you wanted to, or let it dry and take your paintbrush and then add in more lines. If I do that now, what will happen is that you will have, it'll just blur, right? Because the watercolor does need time to dry, and then you can do another layer over it. The other thing is, if you see, for example, down here, and you think that's, gosh, it's just a bit too harsh, you can always soften it up. Just take your paintbrush, take a light wash of some yellow, and then just come through and just soften it up a bit. It will roll, it's gonna cut, it'll blend, so be aware of that, but that's no problem at all. You can just play with this. And because we're not using a ton of color, we don't run the risk of this getting too muddy, which is really, really fun. I'm gonna put just like a little bit more yellow over here. Okay. I love this. This might be one of my favorite ones. One of my favorites. Okay, you guys, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful, beautiful summer day. I hope you go out and make someone else feel special and seen and loved. I'm so appreciative of you. Thank you for those of you who leave comments and encouragement and who've subscribed. It means a lot to me. I look forward to seeing you next week as we start our new series. Have a beautiful Wednesday.